Hi and welcome back to the next episode in the build of the Focke-Wulf 190. You find me in my workshop in somewhat milder conditions than it's been of late because we've got a storm blowing through. Seemingly tonight we're going to have very strong winds and a lot of rain. Hey ho, that's life in the UK for you. So when I left the last chapter, I'd put the wing bandage on, and the reason for doing that was I wanted to get the wing in a position where I could mount it on the fuselage so that I can form the fillets of the joint between the fuselage sides and the wing, that curved fillet with the triangular balsa. And obviously I need to get the wing in position for that. So let's go over to the building board and have a look to see how that wing bandage has turned out. Here is the wing. It's dry. Just looking at that bandage, I can tell it's going to need another coat of the laminating resin. I would guess in total it's going to need about 3 coats of the laminating resin, which is to be expected in a way. But that will give me a much better filled cloth to work with. But you can see from that it's hard where it's firm where the hole is for the servo cables. So I'm not going to look at that yet. I'm not going to do any sanding down of that. I'm not going to give it another coat yet because I want to get this fitted to the fuselage so that I can get on with those fillets. So let's see about fitting this to the fuselage. Let's bring the fuselage up onto the building board. The fuselage has in F2 a hole there into which the locating dowel, which is mounted to the wing, slots in when you mount the wing, and then the bolt goes through the rear of the wing to hold it in place. So the whole thing is held against the wing seat there. So the first thing we have to do is we have to mount the dowel in the wing, pointing to it and you off camera, into the wing leading edge here. There are a couple of ways to do this. Well, probably more than a couple of ways, but let's just firstly offer it up. Just get it twisted round on my building board. So that should slot in quite neatly there, which it does, like so. Now I need to mark the position of where that dowel's going to go, and it's obvious that it's dead easy to mark the position this way here, because you can see the joint first of all between the two wing halves, and that's where it's going to go. But the depth of it is going to be something that you're going to have to measure up from the former in here and then see where that lines up with the wing. Well, just looking at it, I can by inspection see that whilst the hole is going to go in that position, it literally is right on the edge round here. So I can drill that hole or form that hole for the dowel. The dowel is provided in the kit. There it is. There, quite a length of dowel, and that will go into the hole in the former. Okay, now cutting the hole in the wing leading edge. This can be a bit daunting, or could be a bit even problematic. Daunting because am I going to get it in the right position? Problematic because we're going to form a hole where the glue is joined these two halves together, which could be a problem. But I'm just going to use my rat tail file to form the start of the hole here just to start it, and then I'm going to use that in my drill or a drill bit to drill that hole in there. So with my drill, I'm just going to put that rat tail file or drill bit in there, and I'm just going to form that opening a bit better. And then I'm going to open that hole out for the dowel itself. I use reamers for this sort of thing. You can see it's not a drill bit. You can see it's a reamer. It's not as aggressive as a drill bit. Okay, so that should do it. Let's get the drill out of the way. My dowel goes in there now. There's the dowel in place. Make that hole right the way in. It's only foam. There. And that's where my dowel's going to go. Push it all the way in. Like so. Putting the dowel in longer gives greater surface area, because if you think of it, this dowel is going to be glued in, and it's going to glue in against foam. But anyway, let's offer that back up to the fuselage. So when you mount the wing, it's going to be dowel in first, push the wing forwards there, and then the back of the wing is going to go down. That's the way it's designed to work. Okay, now there is an alternative, which is to, instead of drilling a hole for the dowel, what you could do is, if you've got some scrap balsa, doesn't need to be any more than that really, that thickness there, you can mount the dowel in that balsa and then cut out a recess in the leading edge there of the wing. That block would then be glued to the wing. That would arguably give you a stronger joint than the dowel just going into your wing, as I've just shown earlier. The other thing is, it also gets over the potential problem of that dowel, or when you're drilling at an angle and the dowel ends up coming out like that, or you can't get it dead center there, it just runs off. So that gets over the problem. The other problem it gets over is getting that height, the position of the hole correct. Like I say, we're sort of guessing in effect here, well, where's the hole lining up against our wing? Yes, we know that position, but how far down is it? You're sort of looking at it and guessing as you mark it up on the wing here. So that's an alternative. I've elected to go for the balsa block let into the leading edge of the wing. So I've stuck the dowel into the block. Let's just stick it into the former hole, and the idea is that now I'll put some glue around that, push the wing onto that, which should go down like that, and hopefully now what I've got is a perfect fit, which I have. So that's how it's going to be stuck in, and then obviously I'll just form that to shape afterwards. Well, I'll be honest with you, it only needs to be formed to shape on the underside because you don't see the top side, and then the wing will just go in like that, plonk into position there, job done. Tip here, before I glue it is to use a bit of, where's my, oh, there's a bit of the plastic bags that came out from the kit. I'm just going to cut a bit off here. There we go. And just cut along there. Leave that, come in handy. I'm going to cut a cross in the middle of that, and what I will do is I will put that onto the front of the block, so that when I push that in with the glue in place on the block, when I push that in place into the seating, there's no likelihood of any glue coming out of that and sticking to the former, and then obviously me not being able to get the wing out. So wind the clock forward a few hours and the block is in, dry, sanded down, and now, so just to make sure it still does fit, dowel forward into the hole in the former, push forwards, and the back goes down in front of the rear former. The next job to do is to drill the hole through here for the holding down bolt. So I'll get on to that next. What I've done now is I've clamped the wing to the fuselage through the former to one side, so I can look, I'll get down to the T-nut that's in the there in the mounting plate, and all I'm going to do is, with a suitable sharp object or a pen, or a thin pen anyway, I'm just going to push down now through that T-nut and just make a hole or an indentation, a mark there, so I can see where that's got to go. Just take the wing off now, put the fuselage out of the way, and I can see here now, got my pencil, there's the hole that I just made, which is there, which I now have to drill through to the other side. To point out about the hole to be drilled, it's not perpendicular to this surface here, it's actually perpendicular to the surface underneath, because that's the way the plate mounts in the fuselage, parallel with the undersurface of the wing. So let's just, using my start up there, come down, and that's where the hole's going to come out there. So I'm just going to open that out a bit and then run my drill bit through, or my reamer through, to form the hole for the bolt, which is this bolt here. That's the one that's going to go through the fuselage, sorry, through the wing and into the fuselage. So the moment of truth, having drilled the hole for the bolt, let's see if it fits. Peg in. Well, I can Certainly feel the T-nut underneath there. Let's just screw that home. Certainly feels okay, and certainly looks okay. Yep, looking good. Yeah. One thing I would say is that if when you've drilled the hole you found that it's not quite in the right place, so you've got to make it larger, don't worry about that, because what you can always do is cut a small plate of ply, drill a 6mm hole in it for the bolt, and then stick it on the wing there. That's going to get over any problems due to an over large hole going through the wing there. Okay, so this is the bit I wanted to get to. Now that I'm happy with the wing mounting bolt, it's in position, no problem at all. Now turn my attention to the joint between the wing and the fuselage, which is a fillet formed with this triangular balsa section or sections provided in the kit. And the idea is you glue it on there and then sand it to a sort of a concave profile. The problem is, of course, this has got to bend to take into account the aerofoil section. You can see it's quite a steep bend there. Now what you would normally do is cut out sawtooth marks at the back of the timber, the balsa, so that can bend, obviously releasing that. Another approach would be, and you could argue it's a more painstaking approach to the problem, it is cutting out individual little blocks but with them cut at an angle. And this is what I mean by a little block, something like that, and that will then fit in to the first position there. You'd cut the next little block which goes in like so. So you can see you're basically forming the fillet through individual pieces of balsa. The next one, fit it in, and so keep going around. I've done these obviously before down camera, not pushing the position, not gluing yet. But just to give you a general idea. I'm not pushing those in tight. But you can see that I've got a fillet forming there, very easily done with just cutting at a chamfer those individual pieces. And what I'll then do is I would glue those in individually as I go along, and then obviously those pieces would elongate with the less of a curve I need to create there. So this next piece may be that length there, and then the next piece may be that length, and so on. Don't stick them on yet. You need to put a protective film between the wing and the fuselage to stop them sticking. Once we've done that, we can then glue them to each other and to the fuselage, obviously not to the wing there. Don't worry if there are small gaps between the blocks, because we're going to go over the whole model with some lightweight filler before we cover it anyway, and small gaps there, and a lot of those will close up anyway when they're pressed together like that. Small gaps you can fill, so don't worry, and we're going to cover it with covering brown paper anyway, so don't worry too much about that. So I'm going to crack on with doing the fillets using that method to complete the fillet along the wing. I've cut those individual pieces of the triangle of balsa, and they go in from here to here to make it easier to cover the most steeply or sharply curving bit of the profile. But from there back it's one piece with just some saw cuts in it. So that's just a different way of approaching the problem. Right, so the pins are out, no sanding done yet, but there you can see that ready for sanding. That fillet's gone in, and obviously I've got to trim the trailing edge. The trailing edge section will go roughly curve round in that shape there. But I'm going to let it thoroughly dry overnight and then come back to sanding.